All right, so we're going to wrap up this chapter by thinking about um, confronting the challenge of comparing levels of disutility from pain. So, nurses typically ask patients to complete a form that rates the level of pain they're experiencing on a score of 0 to 10 in order to try to determine whether the pain is sufficient for them to see a physician. The problem is that these scales of pain don't share a common frame of reference across individuals. So if I were to say that I am experiencing a level 7 pain and you say that you're experiencing a level 5 pain, that doesn't necessarily mean that I am experiencing more pain than you are. It just that means that from my subjective perspective, I'm experiencing a lot of pain. And from your subjective experience, you're feeling moderate pain. Now, I can talk about a friend of mine who has some chronic illnesses and is constantly in pain, and sometimes quite excruciating pain. Me, on the other hand, I'm fairly healthy. I don't yet experience a lot of aches and pains from aging or anything like that. And so, for some level of pain that I experience, if he experienced the same level of pain, he'd probably be like, "Oh, that's like a 3," whereas I might be like, "Oh, that's a 6 or a 7," right? But it really just has to do with our own experiences and the relative nature of trying to measure pain like that. And as it turns out, utility is the same way, right? Just because. I might, we could use, instead of a pain scale, we could say a satisfaction scale, which would basically be like a utility scale. I might say, "Oh, that I really like that thing. It gives me a satisfaction of 9 out of 10." And if it gave another person the same level of satisfaction, if it was Bill Gates, who has a lot of things and experiences a lot of cool things because of his incredible wealth, he might experience the same level of satisfaction and be like, "Ah, that was like a 3," just because of his experience. But as it turns out, we can't make comparisons of utility between people. So it's kind of just like this pain example. So, all right. And then one other issue and application here. So there are 2 different utility issues associated with a pacemaker for the stomach. So this is what we were talking about at the top of the chapter, that device implanted for in people's stomachs, in the nerve endings of their stomachs. So this stomach pacemaker can reduce the marginal utility from each additional bite of food. Right, so discouraging people from eating more. So this is a device that's made to try to help people lose weight. And so you've got the benefits there, right? This device that helps you lose weight. But then, whoa, that's quite a hefty price tag, right? $30,000. So this device would really have to generate a substantial marginal utility or gain in total utility in order for the individual to rationalize purchasing this thing and be part of their consumer optimum, right? Because basically, we would be dividing, the price is $30,000. So we would be dividing by a very large number, right? So that the bang for the buck would be pretty small, unless this person was really obese and maybe like on the verge of having a heart attack or stroke or something. Which in that case, the marginal utility would be really high because it might be a life-saving device. And so it might be justified. But for someone like myself, I would never purchase this thing because the marginal utility for me just isn't there to justify the huge price tag, right? So I'd rather spend my money on something else. All right, so that's chapter 20 on consumer choice theory. We talked about the distinction between total and marginal utility and how they're related. We saw that total utility is basically total satisfaction from consumption, whereas marginal utility is additional satisfaction or the change in total satisfaction. And we also talked about how marginal utility or additional satisfaction is ultimately declining as a person consumes more of something, right? So think about those Oreos again. Then we looked at what constitutes an optimal choice and the fact that in an optimal choice, the marginal utility per dollar spent has to be equalized across all items consumed. And then we talked about what are the effects of a price change when a consumer is consuming optimally. And we saw that there's actually two effects. There's a substitution effect, right? Switching from relatively more expensive items to relatively less expensive items. And then there's also the real income effect. When there's a price change, your real income or your purchasing power also changes. And so that also drives a change. All right, and then we concluded the chapter with a discussion of behavioral economics and this idea of bounded rationality, the idea that consumers are not fully rational. They might make mistakes. And if bounded rationality is correct, if that's the correct assumption to make, then we can't really use the theory, the model that we just built. But fortunately for us, consumer choice theory still does a really good job in almost every single case of predicting behavior. And so we can kind of ignore the idea that consumers might be boundedly rational. All right, that concludes the video lecture for chapter 20. I hope you enjoyed it. Good luck on your assignments, and I'll see you in the next video lecture. Don't forget to participate in this module's discussion post.